Justice Department keeps a special division to look into voter fraud. Of those 800 million ballots, there have been a grand total, I'm not making this up, of 35 serious voter ID fraud claims, or one for every 23 million. So they think we're stronger apart. And they spend all this time being entertaining, saying terrible things about other people. And then somebody started looking at exactly what Hillary's opponent did with his foundation, and it gets uglier every day. But that's not what this election is about. This election is about how are we going to raise more incomes? How are we going to create more jobs? How are we going to get more women in the workforce in a way that they can succeed? Because 70% of our economy depends on consumer spending, and if people don't have any money to consume, then it's going to hurt the economy. The wealthiest Americans are eventually going to get burned by taking too much off the top, because people have to have money to spend for this economy to work. And and I just would say this. She has continued to treat the voters with respect. She is the only candidate who has offered a plan to help places that have been especially hard hit in the economy, from coal country to Indian country to poor urban neighborhoods like the one I was in Pittsburgh today, to small town and rural America. The first person to offer a serious approach to this drug epidemic that's eating our country alive. And there's some of you here, besides me, that have gray hair. I can tell you this. This is the first drug epidemic in my lifetime where the addiction rates have been higher in small town and rural America than in big cities. Now, it's an equal opportunity killer. It kills Republicans and Democrats and people without regard to their race and religion. I've had to call 5 parents that were good friends of Hillary's and mine because they lost their children. 5. And I don't want to do it anymore. But right out the gate, as soon as she declared for president, Hillary offered a plan to address this. Last week, she fleshed out her mental health plan. You talk to any, she'd been meeting with big city police officers because of the concern about young people being shot who were unarmed and all these controversies. You know what they all asked for? They said, look, we're trying to train our people not to shoot too soon. But it's hard when there are no universal background checks, and it's hard when people get in trouble and we don't have any mental health facilities to send them to help them to avoid the worst developments. So that's the second point I want to make. She's got the only serious economic plan and the only serious plan to help us work together and live together. And the third thing is, she's the best change maker I've ever known. As I said at the Democratic Convention, everything she's ever touched, she made better. And all they can do is do what they've been doing, trying to drag her down. But it's gotten a little harder in the last day or two when all the evidence has come out. And the FBI said it wasn't a close call. She didn't do anything illegal. It wasn't close. And then they finally released the email where Secretary General Powell said he used a personal device too. It was all right till she did it. She's had a lot of experience like that. But nonetheless, it's better not to do it, so she said that. But we need to think about what we're going to do. I believe, based on 30 years of doing this work, I honestly believe that we are very close to being able to have the kind of broad-based growth we had when I was president, where everybody rises together. I think the president has done a better job managing this economy than he's often gotten credit for. Because it's pretty hard to get up and go to work every day, and the leaders of the other parties say our number one goal is to make sure you don't get anything done, even if it hurts our own constituents. We can always blame you. They'll never believe you. And besides, they only watch one television network. Right? I mean, that's what they say, right? So, but the truth is, in fairness to Republicans, including the unprecedented number who have endorsed her, mostly over national security. The Dallas Morning News in Texas endorsed a Democrat yesterday for the first time since 1940. I was a neighboring governor, and they wouldn't endorse me. Well, President Bush was from Texas. I didn't want that. Ross Perot was from Texas, but the next time they wouldn't. But they endorsed her over national security grounds. So the two things that could keep us from seizing all these opportunities before us are political gridlock at home and trouble around the world. And if you saw that TV show, she's the only person that has the standing and the understanding to keep us safe and give us the space we need to grow our way out of the long trough we've been in since the financial crash. And if we do it, we can take the rest of the world with us. You know, you didn't have a lot of this craziness when I was president because people felt good. After 8 years after the crash, 80% of the American people after inflation hadn't gotten a pay raise. Almost all the gains have gone to the top 1%. You can't run a country that way. But every time the president proposed a comprehensive response to it that made good sense, they just blew it off. So I can understand why there's a lot of road rage out there. But Hillary's running a campaign on answers, not anger, on responsibility, not resentment, on empowerment, not rage. But look, I know where I am. You know a lot of people that are voting for Trump, don't you? And what happens? Look, this is I'm a white Southern, Scots-Irish Protestant, right? A poster child for Mr. Trump's base. I believe, I hope I am the last president who can ever say he spent some time on a small farm as a child without any indoor plumbing. It's a great political line, but trust me, it's way overrated, the outhouse. Especially if you live in the South in the summertime, you got to look out for the snakes every time you go in. I'm saying this because I get it. You know what's happening. Too many of our fellow citizens get up every day, they look in the mirror, and they think every one of their tomorrows is going to be just like yesterday. They feel helpless, and it breeds rage. And they don't think they can provide for their children and their grandchildren, and it makes them sick. But we all were taught at our parents' knees that you don't make good decisions when you're mad. You make good decisions when you think and feel your way to the future. We live in an interdependent world. Even this crowd here is much more diverse than it would have been if we'd had this meeting 30 years ago. More diverse in age, in gender, in race, and for all I know, in religious practices. It's our big advantage, but we got to rise together. In that campaign, Make America Great Again means, hey, I'll give you the economy you had 50 years ago. And I'll move you back up on the social totem pole and move somebody else down. And we've moved down on, we've seen a march on African Americans and immigrants and Muslims and women who ask uncomfortable questions and, you know, lots of others. Even going after that Gold Star family whose son died in combat in Afghanistan. That's an old strategy. If you want to inflame people to support you and you have no intention of really doing anything for them, give them somebody else to blame and look down on. It does not work in the world we're in. May get you some votes at election time, but it's a lousy way to run an economy, a terrible way to run a society. What we ought not to do is move people around on the social totem pole. What we need to do is tear the totem pole down altogether and let's rise together. Let's go forward together. Let's bring everybody in here together. And so while you got the time, I plead with you to register as many voters as you can. While you got the time, I plead with you to persuade as many people who are disillusioned by all this dreck that's been dominating this campaign. And if they tell you it doesn't make any difference, you say, oh, yeah, it does, and start with the 14 million jobs. Start with the fact that she's the only person who's for equal pay and paid leave for families. She wants to raise the minimum wage. He wants to lower it. Deal with the facts. It makes a real difference. But it also makes a difference in how we're viewed around the world. Hillary could get up there and start pushing legislation through Congress. And if things go haywire around the world, it could mess us up. That's why President Obama said at the convention that she's better qualified for this time than he was or I was, which is factually true. You'll be proud you elected her. She must win in Pennsylvania. And the last thing I want to say is this. The most important thing is to maximize our registration and our turnout. But along the way, particularly in this part of the state, you're going to run into a lot of people that don't think they should vote for her. And I don't want you to get mad at them. They're our neighbors and our friends. And they're being driven by two things: economic road rage and all these cultural changes. Besides the people from my ethnic group, people from my age group are now his strongest supporters. Doing better as people get older. They say, oh man, I've had about all the change I can take in here. I want to go inside and close the door for a few years. Let's stop this. I don't think like that. Maybe it's just because in my foundation, just about everybody that works there, with 2 or 3 exceptions, is half my age or younger. But I think if you have more yesterdays than tomorrows, you ought to take better care of tomorrow, because you don't have that many. And you ought to be focused on how your tomorrows can pave a better future for children. And so don't give up on anybody. I literally, in the primary, went down to southern West Virginia and let these guys who were screaming at me when I got out of the car, and I said, hey guys, you did real well when I was president. You voted for me twice. Now come inside and scream at me. So they did, and I said, here's what I want to tell you. Hillary sent me down here to say, you vote for whoever you want. If you think you can make it like it was 50 years ago, have at it. But that's just like me saying, I'd like to be 20 again. Actually, I would. But I would not vote for anyone who promised to make me 20 again. So I said, Hillary sent me down here to tell you, vote for whoever you want, but if she wins, she's coming back for you to try to take every area, every person, every decent, law-abiding person willing to work hard, let them make a new start. More jobs, higher incomes, more opportunities, more upward mobility, less inequality. That's what this election is about in the hearts of people. That and how to deal with our differences. The rest of this is all smoke and mirrors and drives the polls up and down, and people go, whoa. But really down deep inside, the question is, can we have the kind of shared prosperity we had in the 90s again? I believe we can. Can we do it with all this diversity? I believe we can. I think it's a big asset. Our friends in Japan, for example, have adopted a bigger infrastructure program than Hillary has proposed for America on a per capita basis. And it didn't budge the economy because they're getting older and older and older, and they won't take any immigrants. So there's just not enough people to do enough work to generate enough growth to start enough new businesses to keep on rolling it over. That's what we have to do. We can do this, man. I'm just telling you, we can do this. It does not have to be a dreary, long saga, but we got to do it together. So vote for the person who knows we're stronger together. Tell that to people, and God bless you for all the work you're doing. Thank you.